Good morning and welcome to KTN Mid Morning. My name is Koi. Now this week we've been learning a lot of history, and so far we've taken you to the Kasone Antique Store, the African Heritage, as well as the African Heritage House. We've taken a brief tour of the refurbished Nairobi National Museum, and the journey to learn about our history and heritage is not yet over, because today we take you to a place that a number of you have probably passed and not even given a second look, even though it's a place that preserves all public records and archives in Kenya. Where is this place, you ask? Find out up next on Mid Morning Lifestyle.
Hello, my name is Flora Musa. I work for the Kenya National Archives. I'll take you for a garden tour around the archives. The Kenya National Archives building was built in 1931, which was originally the headquarters of National Bank of India. On this section, we have culture and ways of life during those old time, how people used to live in those old time. For example, most of the pictures over here, like the typical Kikuyu homestead, means of transport during those old time, old men celebrating, and a non-married woman wearing a surutia, the round necklace. This is a section where we have the Mau Mau fighters. Basically, we have a pass that every Mau Mau people, when they surrender, they hand to carry to get fair treatment. Like this one over here, it's a sample of the pass, which bears the name of the person. Is given a fair treatment, food, medical attention if required. Is detained, but is not to be prosecuted of any offense connected to the emergency, which he may have committed prior to 18th January 1955. This is a lamp used by the Comoros Island people, like a lamp. They pour fat inside and put a ribbon hanging from outside, and it can light just like a lamp. And here we have a mortar and pestle for grading maize from the Giriama people in Kenya. Inside the house, we have a display called Zidaka, a display done by Swahili women in the house to show their household. They imported them from China and India. That's melamine caps. And this is kanga, a clothing worn by the Swahili women. And this over here, it's kikoi, a clothing worn by the Swahili men. And this is a chest given to a newly married woman to start a new life with. This is a rhino horn earring, which is supposed to be worn only by the older women. And this is a gold one, which is supposed to be worn by the younger women, like this. And these are silver jewelries, used mostly in wedding time. Kenyan history cannot be told in one day. Visit us at the Kenya National Archives and get to learn more about our Kenyan African history.
Stay tuned for Right at Home, which is coming up next.
By the time you're signing a contract, there are some approvals you need to have. You need to have perused, because at the time of signing a contract, there are some documents showing the dimensions, like the approved plans, showing the dimensions of a house. Then there's something called a sample house. Sometimes when you're purchasing, there's usually the sample unit. So if these particulars have already been put in the sale agreement, and they are quite clear that you're purchasing as per the inspected approved drawings, or probably you're purchasing as seen on the show house, then with that you have every right to sue. You have every right to demand for quality of service of what you had demanded, of the product that you had demanded. But most of the time you'll find even in brochures, particulars are never warranted. And that is why you'll need to be very careful, because most of the time what they'll just give you are specifications. It's going to be a 2-bedroom house, a 3-bedroom house, wooden flooring, this is it. But now at the end of the day you don't get to know what are the actual dimensions of a house. And these things actually change depending on what is going to be approved. Sometimes you may want, sometimes they may say they want to build a house of these dimensions, but what is approved is something lesser. So as at the time of purchasing, you need to have inspected, and that's why you need an advocate. You need to have inspected the approved drawings, because with the approved drawings or the actual drawings, you'll be able to look at them and see the actual dimensions of what it is that you're purchasing, and that now will be able to put you in a picture of what it is that you're purchasing. It's called an assignment. And it varies from developers, or rather from vendors. There are vendors who allow for assignment, where one can come in and at somewhere along the transaction you feel like you want to sell, when especially the prices have gone high, and with the consent of the vendor you can assign the property to somebody else. But now that the person coming in will now take that property with the same terms you took with. For example, if you are paying in a monthly installments, or you are paying on bi-monthly, or whatever mode of payment it is that you are paying. So whatever rights and obligations that you were able to negotiate at the beginning of the contract, you will be handing them down to the new purchaser. So it's called an assignment, and it definitely has to be with consent of the vendor, because some vendors do not allow you to assign the property or sell the property until you yourself have finalized making the payments. So some will demand first finalize on the payments. For example, if you're buying a house for 5 million and you found a purchaser who's willing to sell it, to buy it for 7 million, now the vendor will say, no, pay me my 5 million first. When you find an instance, the new purchaser can even decide, fine, let me help you pay, offset, or rather finalize with your balance, and then now I come in and become the new purchaser. But some vendors are very flexible. They will say, fine, you found somebody else, as long as they are willing to take over your burdens, take over from where you left. So what will happen is that the new purchaser will pay you off what you had paid together with the profits that you've made on top, and then they will be left now with the vendor and complete the transactions with the terms that you had entered into. So they'll be more or less just taking over from where you'd left off. Now, that is the biggest quagmire purchasers are actually facing, especially when it comes to apartments where you're sharing common facilities and you have a management company. Okay, now what happens is that ordinarily ordinarily what's supposed to happen is that every year the management company is supposed to take care of the service charge, is supposed to take care of the land rent and land rates of that property and clear it annually, consistently. But what would happen ordinarily is that if you want now to dispose of your property, you will have now to go to the management company. Now, you know, the management companies are now the common owners of these apartments. So you'll have now to go to them to request them to give you their consent also, because they need to give their consent, and also have cleared the land rents and the land rates and give you the clearance certificates. So I call it a quagmire, because at the end of the day you find that you're not detached, you're not free to dispose of your property as you may want to, or charge it, because at the end of the day you will still need the consent and approval of the management company. And sometimes you find that there are delays. Sometimes you may want to dispose of your property and find that maybe they have accrued land rent or rates that are owing, and you find that purchasers at the end of the day, or a person who's selling, decide to run the loss, to pay it off and have it signed, because at that time you find maybe the management company was not running as appropriately as it should have been, because ordinarily it should maintain and ensure that all these payments are paid timely, so that should there be a transaction or anybody wanting to transact with the property, that they don't now get a hitch at the end of the day when you find now you want to transfer and there's some payments that are due and owing. Yeah, so I call it a quagmire, but it is doable, and we find that some management company that are actually it's smooth running in some places, but not always.
when we decide to put our differences aside, we are capable of achieving great things. Emily Dickinson, an American poet, said, and I quote, "We never know how high we are until we're called to rise, and then, if we are true to our plan, our statues touch the skies." Emily Dickinson is simply saying that we all have the potential for greatness, and it comes out when the situation demands it. So don't be afraid to bring out your greatness. One thing for sure is that the Eve Sisters Conference aims to bring out the greatness to those who attend. So stay tuned for that.
I want to talk to you tonight about the true wealth of nations, not just the wealth of nations. Adam Smith in 1776, the same year that the United States of America became an official republic, became a nation, Adam Smith wrote a book where he attempted to present a model and a philosophy of economics. And ever since then, we have built every form of economics on a model from 1776. We keep wondering why nation after nation is declaring bankruptcy, and of course bankruptcy occurs when a country or a business no longer has capital. They're insolvent, and they don't have any more capital to discharge their liability or debt. And there are so many African nations and so many other nations around the world, and it's interesting with your speech earlier, you mentioned values. A few colleagues of mine have discovered that there is a direct correlation between a nation's core values and a nation's wealth. There are certain indicators, and when they fall below a specific number on that indicator list, that index, then that nation begins to collapse in terms of their infrastructure. When they were looking at Iceland, out of all of the indicators, they invited some colleagues of mine to come in. And they were the one a year prior to that to be able to say, these are the values, here are the indicators. You are low on this value. And if you don't address these values, then you're going to have an economic collapse. I think we do ourselves a disservice when we refuse to see economics from a spiritual perspective. It's almost like people are afraid of the word spirituality, because we believe that when we talk about spirituality, we are actually talking about religion. But spirituality and religion are on opposite ends of the continuum. Religion actually is man trying to, or attempting to, dictate to people how they should worship God. Whenever you have that level of dictation, denominations and religions are formed, and it creates factions. We're all created in the image of God and after his likeness. And this is something that we should not try to avoid, even as professionals. I remember when my premier called me early one morning. It was about 6:30 in the morning. And he said to me, "Cindy, I just can't get you out of my mind. I need to see you." And we talked over the telephone in length. And he said, "We need you. Your island needs you. And would you agree to serve on our political party?" At that particular time, I was apolitical. I voted for the man and not for the party. And overnight, literally, one day I was apolitical. And within a week, I remember this clearly. One night I went to bed employed by government. And the next morning I awakened. I was running government. It happened to me almost like a Cinderella story. Sometimes I pinch myself because I wonder if I'm dreaming. But then I said, this is the stuff that the world is made of. And what we really need to do is to wake up to live the life of our dreams. Martin Luther King said, I had a dream. And he woke up and he challenged other people. Let's live the life of this dream. I believe that I'm standing here because when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I'm not saying that I have everything that you need, but I believe that I have a piece of the puzzle. If I didn't, I don't deserve to be standing in front of you. And I need to be taking my seat listening to someone else. But I have a confidence in knowing that this is my personal destiny being played out. I'm a philosopher at heart. I'm scientific in my mind. I approach everything scientifically. I create models and philosophies. And somehow people want to listen to me. One day I took it seriously. I trademarked a technology. Currently, my lawyers have instructed me that I'm coming to the end of the process where there's a big TM that's going to be placed on some of the works that I do. And so tonight, if you run off and you try to steal anything, I'm coming after you, because I can always use some extra money to go to Dubai on vacation. But never in the history of the world has there been so great an opportunity for practical dreamers, such as you and I, that exists as it exists now. We have actually moved from a left brain world to a right brain world, thanks to Stephen Jobs. That means that we no longer are living in a world that is run by men that are just analytical. They're run by individuals that are creative and innovative. The 6-year economic collapse has reduced all men to a substantially different level than where we were 6 years prior to this. A new race is about to be run. The stakes represent huge fortunes, which will be accumulated within the next 10 years. The rules of the race have changed because we now live in a changed world. The masses no longer are like the masses that existed during my mother's era and my grandmother's era. We no longer have people that are sitting back and waiting for someone else to determine their destiny. There's a revolution that's going on at a grass level. The previous economy had a number of people that were paralyzed by fear. But now I believe that we are moving like a well-oiled machine, even though many are not aware of it. And this machine is being driven by something as simple as faith. It was Jesus that quoted, if you have faith like the grain of a mustard seed, it doesn't take much, but just a mustard seed faith, faith in you, faith in your leaders, faith in your nation. We could move out of recession and we can move into a better Zambia. We who are in this race for wealth and riches have to declare that we're actually in the race. You cannot act as if you are not. You cannot do your stretches on the sideline and casually stroll when the person who has the gun is getting ready to shoot it. You would be disqualified. You have to find your feet in the stock. And you have to declare that I'm in this race and I'm going to give it all I got. That was the declaration I made 21 years ago. when I left government. I didn't leave it because they kicked me out. I was scheduled to be the first black female premier of my nation. They were training me. They were betting on me. And I walked away.
For only 50 shillings, you get a chance to explore the history of Kenya and learn about the culture of other parts of this vast continent. Now that's what I call a bargain. Mid-morning at standardmedia.co.ke is our contact. Don't forget to check out our Facebook page. It's called KTN Mid-Morning. Drop in a comment and like the page if you enjoy the features. Goodbye for now.